I grew up playing the basketball with the boys, so like it's always been physical and feisty, and like that's what it is, and you got to find a way to hold your own.
Caitlin Clark has always been known for her jaw-dropping skills on the court, but her latest transformation is turning heads off the court, too. From her style and confidence to her mindset and media presence, fans are doing a serious double take. This isn't just a glow-up. It's a full-blown evolution that's leaving the sports world stunned. Is it the pressure, the fame, or something much deeper driving this change? One thing's certain, Caitlin Clark is stepping into a whole new era, and you won't believe how far she's come. Breaking records and bearing scars. Every single time Caitlin Clark stepped onto the basketball court, she faced a storm of challenges that most players could hardly imagine. The hits continued to come. Tough penalties, combative defenders, and relentless pressure from both sides. However, Caitlin refused to give up no matter how difficult things got. She did more than only play the game. Both fans and experts were taken aback by the changes she made. She broke three-point shooting records repeatedly, scored points incredibly easily, and was the driving force behind the Indiana Fever's incredible comeback. Her brilliance was indisputable, but what really made her stand out was her fierce, unwavering spirit, which encouraged her entire team to have higher hopes. However, Caitlin's tale was not solely about spectacular performances or astounding stats. Behind her self-assured smile a young woman was bearing unseen burdens, emotional scars that no one could see, but that affected her every day, as evidenced by those breathtaking highlight moments. The world looked to her to be perfect, to shine brilliantly, and without hesitation. Her greatness was applauded by her fans. The media followed her every step, anticipating her next amazing achievement, and coaches expected her to give it their all. She felt as though she had a mountain of demands, dreams, and occasionally unachievable expectations resting on her shoulders. The WNBA, the league she played in, frequently did not provide her with protection, which made matters worse. This was supposed to be a location where sportsmen like Caitlin may feel encouraged and safe. Rather, she was occasionally left uncovered, open to cheap shots and rough fouls that the referees frequently missed. There was more to these moments than just bodily discomfort. She felt deceived by the system that was supposed to support her after they had damaged her trust. Beyond only causing cuts and scrapes, such kind of negligence hurts. It undermines an athlete's confidence at its core. Caitlin would put on a brave front for the cameras and spectators following each hard, brutal game. Her characteristic smile would appear as though everything was ideal. However, a closer examination might reveal something different about her. Eyes. Those eyes conveyed tales of hardship and suffering, but also of fortitude and will. She wasn't just playing hoops. She was struggling to exist in a society that expected a lot of her, but frequently provided very little in return. Each game was a multifaceted conflict, not only against the opponents on the other side of the court, but also against the unseen forces that are putting pressure on her from every direction. There was more to Caitlin Clark than simply sports. She was a fighter negotiating an intricate web of obstacles, both visible and invisible. Nevertheless, Caitlin continued to demonstrate that she was made despite every hit, harsh call, and moment of uncertainty, of anything remarkable. Her path involved more than just records or points. It was about having guts, being strong, and refusing to let the system that ought to have helped her break her. Her ascent became even more powerful and inspirational due to her unwavering spirit. She was destined to become a legend. However, why was she the object of such persistent attacks? Was it fear, jealousy, or something far more nuanced? Let's now explore the unseen challenges of the WNBA's most promising young player and the harsh realities of celebrity. In the glare of national cameras and the dazzling lights of crowded stadiums, Caitlin Clark stood precisely where she was supposed to be, in the middle of everything. Every move she took was greeted with roars of enthusiasm, her name reverberated throughout arenas, and her face dominated highlight reels. She was the WNBA's most recent sensation, a rookie sensation destined to lead the league into the future. In a lot of ways, she succeeded. Her passes were spectacular, her strokes were brilliant, and her fierce competitiveness never wavered. Beneath all the glitz and glory, however, a different and much more agonizing story was developing. Behind the cheers and the kudos, Clark was dealing with something far more serious. An unrelenting storm of physical discipline. She was pushed to the ground, hit with cheap, non-accidental feathers, and beaten with elbows to the ribs in game after game. Gritted teeth and damaged flesh were frequently used to generate what spectators viewed as outstanding performances. However, far too frequently, the referees, who were supposed to keep players safe, turned a blind eye. Egregious fouls were not called. Aggressive defense was the term used to describe obvious hits. Clark continued to get up during the entire ordeal. Her opponents thought she was just being tough. They advised her to become tougher and earn her spot in a grown women's league. However, to the millions of viewers, particularly the younger, for the girls who viewed her as a hero, it was obvious that something more sinister was taking place. This was more than just a game of basketball. It seemed calculating, intimate, and even antagonistic. The hits continued to come with each game, and her mere existence seemed to incite animosity. The league's leadership's silence only made matters worse. When Clark was thrown to the ground night after night, the WNBA, which had so gleefully utilized her ascent to increase attendance and sell out games, said very little. There were no protests, no tightening of the rules, and no admission that their most marketable celebrity was being treated like a target. Her suffering seemed to be the price she had to pay for her celebrity, which increased every week. One question hung over everything as former sportsmen started to speak up and fans' indignation got greater. For what length of time might Caitlin Clark continue to take this? Although she was physically and intellectually strong, nobody is unbeatable. Anybody might eventually be broken by the relentless beating, the psychological toll of being pursued on the court, and the absence of institutional assistance. She was carrying more than simply the weight of expectations. She was carrying the burden of unjust treatment and risky silence. On and off the court, a storm is currently brewing. People band together in her favor. Critics sharpen their blades. Additionally, each subsequent game feels like a struggle and an endurance test. How amazing Caitlin Clark can become isn't the only question. It's the amount of time she can endure the never-ending physical struggle until it wears her down. However, how did she actually get started in the WNBA? Let's examine the startling truth that underlies Caitlin Clark's remarkable WNBA debut. From collegiate legend to pro target, Caitlin Clark's life began like a scenario straight out of a sports fairy tale. She started out little but had huge dreams, and as a college basketball standout, she became well known across the country. Her unwavering confidence, incredibly accurate long-range shots, and keen court vision made her a household name. She altered the game rather than merely playing it, breaking all kinds of records. She became a symbol of a new era in women's basketball by electrifying venues and drawing big TV viewers. Before ever being a professional athlete, she became the face of the sport when her name was cheered in crowds and her clips went viral. The world therefore anticipated fireworks when she announced her intention to enter the WNBA draft. Her victory lap, the next phase of an already remarkable career, was to be the move to the professional league. Supporters imagined her winning championships, outplaying defenses, and changing the league's standards. But rather than a hero's welcome, Clark entered a storm. It was evident that something was wrong from her very first WNBA game. The opposing players attempted to physically shut her down in addition to merely protecting her. She was repeatedly double-teamed, elbowed without a penalty, and smashed to the ground in game after game. The message appeared to be obvious. The hits were forceful, and the whistles were quiet. It was not going to be easy for Caitlin Clark. The sheer number of these fouls was even more startling. She soon rose to become the WNBA's most fouled rookie. Nobody wants to own that record. Each time she took the court, it wasn't merely a game of basketball. It was a struggle to stay alive. She was fighting for more than simply points. She was struggling to remain upright. It was relentlessly physical. The animosity was obvious. However, why was she so targeted? Theories began to circulate. Did athletes who had toiled for years without her degree of prominence feel jealous? Was it anxiety? Worried that she would tip the league's power dynamics? Or was there something more profound and intimate going on beneath the typical happy press conferences and post-game interviews? Was Clark receiving punishment because she was popular and dared to stand out too much in a league that wasn't? Are you prepared to share the limelight? The ferocity with which she was being challenged, defended, and fouled even caught the attention of fans. Videos of dubious hits and contentious calls were all over social media. Coaches, analysts, and former athletes provided their opinions. Her roughness was lauded by some. Some chastised the league for failing to safeguard one of its main attractions. Clark, meanwhile, continued. She didn't voice any complaints. She didn't give up. She continued to play, score goals, and establish her identity. It was supposed to be a dream for her to join the WNBA. Instead, Caitlin Clark found herself put to the test in a way that no novice should ever experience. Additionally, this is the query that continues to reverberate throughout headlines and arenas. Why her? Why the resistance at this level? The answers are still mired in pride, politics, and power. However, Caitlin Clark's narrative is far from finished. Let's examine how one superstar is influencing a new age and the game's very future. Basketball will never be the same thanks to Caitlin Clark. Like many other sports, basketball is always evolving. We witness players become stronger, faster, and more proficient with each subsequent generation. Thanks to innovative training regimens, improved diets, and analytics, and even wearable technologies are helping athletes advance at a never-before-seen pace. NBA player Trae Young claims that this change is accelerating rather than slowing down in the near future. Young described this constant change as a normal aspect of sports in an interview with the From the Point podcast. He claimed that it is identical to all other sports. Things continue to improve. Today's players don't merely adhere to outdated strategies. They are bringing their own spin while observing today's greats. Young brought up how younger gamers are paying great attention to celebrities like Caitlin Clark and attempting to emulate her fashion sense. They are taking note of Caitlin's actions and incorporating them into their own strategy. Perhaps with a little more flair, he smiled. The Indiana Fever star, Caitlin Clark, has become a sensation in the basketball world. She has developed into more than simply another gifted athlete since taking the stage professionally. She is now the WNBA spokesperson. Clark has gained acclaim from the basketball community for her incredible long-range shooting, lightning-fast decision-making, and fierce competitive spirit. Her jersey sales have skyrocketed, and fans are swarming arenas to watch her perform. But she continues to have an impact. With her on-court performance, the ramifications of Clark's ascent will last for many years. Young thinks her presence is changing the game's future, particularly for young girls who now witness a bold, flamboyant, and self-assured role model. We're going to see a bunch of players who play like Caitlin Clark in 20 years, Young said. Not only because of her abilities, but also because of the motivation she provides to young children worldwide, particularly young girls. The influence of Clark extends much beyond box office results and highlight reels. She is turning into a model, a real-life illustration of how much the game may change when someone pushes the boundaries. Her young athletes are being able to play fearlessly, dream bigger, and understand that excellence isn't constrained by gender or expectations because to a mix of deep shooting range, court leadership, and a passionate attitude. And that's what's so thrilling about this point in basketball history. A new generation of stars will probably be influenced by Caitlin Clark's game as more players turn to her as a mentor. Players that not only duplicate her skill set but also carry forward her influence and energy. Basketball's future is currently being written, and Caitlin Clark is writing it. The entire playbook is being rewritten by Caitlin Clark. Her unwavering spirit and brazen style are forming the next phase. But why is she encountering so much opposition in a league where she deserves to be praised? Now is the moment to see how prejudice made this budding talent a scapegoat. Favoritism, league partiality, and an undefended star. Caitlin Clark was the focus of constant harassment on the court, game after game, foul after foul. However, the referees ignored the situation again. The annoyance spread among fans worldwide. People started posing challenging queries. Why was Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's brightest star and biggest crowd puller, left exposed to harsh treatment without any safeguards? Why was she permitted to be pushed around as the game continued as if nothing had happened? Step in to stop them. It was as if an unwritten rule existed. Was it wrong that Caitlin could be physically assaulted, bruised, and fouled with minimal repercussions? Many questioned whether this was more than a simple error. Was she being subtly punished by the league for appending the existing quo? Was it a covert attempt to undermine her? Veteran players appeared to feel empowered on the court, almost inspired to push her hard and play rough because they knew the referees wouldn't. Carrying it out. The situation was exacerbated by the WNBA's leadership's silence. The league's leaders chose to ignore the mounting worries, leaving players, fans, and experts in suspense. Whispers began, spreading in online forums, locker rooms, and sporting events. Some others thought politics was at play, that the game's title was influenced by a covert power struggle going on behind the scenes. Others discussed more profound problems, speculating that anger and race could play a role. It was believed by some that the league's old guard was threatening the new star's quick ascent and was doing everything in their power to stop her, including using biased officiating. It was no longer solely about basketball. Caitlin Clark's struggles on the court grew to represent a larger struggle against a system that appeared to be set up to hold her back. The youthful celebrity wasn't simply dealing with aggressive plays and strong defenders. She had to contend with unfair treatment, unseen powers, and a whole league that didn't seem eager to defend her. In spite of all the obstacles, Caitlin didn't give up. She shown remarkable resilience in each game and play. Despite the mounting challenges, she persisted in moving forward, gaining points, setting records, and demonstrating her value. Supporters thought she was more than just an athlete and appreciated her strength. They viewed her as a fighter who was fighting against both her adversaries and the system that was supposed to help her. This continuous conflict generated heated discussions within the sports community. Did the WNBA take sufficient action to safeguard its athletes, particularly its most talented players? Did an underlying bias need to be identified and addressed? Above all, would Caitlin Clark's tenacity result in long-lasting change, not just for her, but for everyone who followed? Ultimately, Caitlin Clark's story served as a potent reminder. The most significant conflicts occasionally take place in the shadows, away from the court, when demands for justice and fairness must be made as loudly as the applause from the spectators. But was she being covertly punished by the league for rising so quickly? Was there a covert attempt to make the young star who dared to shine so brightly more humble? Let's now explore how Caitlin Clark overcame every challenge into the creation of a legend, her greatest victory. From grit, pain, and pressure. Despite all of the difficulties she faced, Caitlin Clark never once gave up or backed down. Every time she was harshly fouled by an opponent, it wasn't just a loss. It turned into fuel that made her push even harder. Each scrape and bruise she sustained on the court became a testament to her bravery and strength. Caitlin chose to use those difficult times to strengthen herself rather than allow them to break her. She became more driven than anyone had ever seen, sharpened her thoughts, and toughened her emotions rather than simply playing through the agony. Previously, Caitlin was first regarded as a talented rookie with much promise. However, what transpired with her quickly grew beyond basketball. She began to represent something more profound. She became a representation of genuine grace and grit, demonstrating to everyone how to face pressure with poise and bravery. Caitlin Clark's tale was no longer solely about winning games or scoring scores. It was about standing tall when the world expected her to collapse and about fighting back when it felt like everything was against her. She faced more than simply formidable opponents on the court, which is what caused her to advance to such a remarkable level. As if to check if she could withstand the harsh treatment meant to slow her down, the league itself appeared to test her at every turn. However, Caitlin was unaffected by anything or anyone. She did more than just make it through the difficulties. They were the reason she flourished. She redefined what it meant to be a champion with each obstacle. People started to view her as a strong example of resilience in addition to being the WNBA's most exciting player. She demonstrated to young athletes, supporters, and even detractors that genuine excellence is about heart rather than skill. When you combine sheer skill with an unshakable spirit, you don't just succeed. You give others hope that they can achieve the same success. Caitlin Clark became a real example of how legends are created when people confront difficulties head-on rather than fleeing. Her experience became a message that spread well beyond basketball courts. It addressed everyone going through a difficult period in their lives by reminding them that if you're determined to pursue your goals, setbacks can serve as stepping stones. We all learned from Caitlin's narrative that suffering and adversity don't have to define us. They have the power to make us more resilient, courageous, and unstoppable. In a world when many would have given up, Caitlin Clark opted to rise. She evolved from a novice into a cultural figure and symbol who altered our way of thinking about bravery and fortitude. At one point, the WNBA appeared to be a war designed to exhaust her. Rather, it turned into the setting for her mythology. She is more than simply the league's spokesperson these days. She is a ray of optimism, a brilliant illustration of what occurs when gifted people take on difficult tasks and don't give up. What are your thoughts on Caitlin's change that caused us to pause and think? Please share your ideas in the comments section below. Remember to like and subscribe.